HMS Victorious and other ships of the British Pacific Fleet arrived at Sydney in February 1945. In early February, Victorious joined Task Force 113 at Sydney to prepare for service with the US 5th Fleet, and at the end of the month, TF 113 left Sydney for their forward base at Manus Island, north of New Guinea, and then continued joining the 5th US Fleet at the Ulithi on the 25th of March as Task Force 57, supporting the American assault on Okinawa. The task allocated to the British force was to neutralise airfields in the Sakishima Gonto. From late March until the 25th of May, the British carriers Victorious, Illustrious, later replaced by Formidable, Indefatigable and Indomitable, formed the 1st Aircraft Carrier Squadron commanded by Vice Admiral Philip Vane, and they were in action against airfields on the Sakishima Islands and Formosa. The British carriers were attacked by kamikaze suicide aircraft, and Victorious was hit on the 4th and 9th of May and near miss on the 1st of April, but her armoured flight deck resisted the worst of the impacts. She remained on station and was back in operation within hours on each occasion, despite damage to an aircraft lift and steam piping in her superstructure. 3 men were killed and 19 of the ship's company were injured. After May 1945, the British Pacific Fleet withdrew to Sydney and Manus for refits, in the cases of Victorious, Formidable and Indefatigable for repairs to battle damage. The British fleet rendezvoused with the US 3rd Fleet on the 16th of July and became effectively absorbed into the American structure as part of TF-38 for a softening up of Japanese resistance within their home islands. During the second half of July, aircraft from Victorious took part in a series of attacks on Japanese shipping, transport and air bases on Honshu and around the Inland Sea. In one notable attack on July, aircraft of 849 Squadron from Victorious located the Japanese escort carrier Keiyu at Beppu Bay in Kyushu and attacked her, inflicting serious damage that kept the ship out of the remainder of the war. In the main, however, British aircraft were excluded from the actions against the major Japanese naval bases. The 2 atomic bombs were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki on the 6th and 9th of August respectively, and Japan surrendered on the 15th of August by the time of the surrender. The outcome of the war was clear, and Victorious left for Manus with Task Force 37 on the 12th of August and then proceeded to Sydney. This apparently premature departure was in fact a delay to a withdrawal planned for the 10th of August to prepare for the anticipated invasion of Japan. The British Pacific Fleet commander had agreed to stay for 1 more day's operations, but the British arrangements could not stretch to further delay, and fuel shortages were insurmountable. In addition, the steering faults that had hampered Victorious in the Indian Ocean in late 1944 are believed to have continued. Victorious left Australia in September 1945, arrived back in Britain on the 27th of October and undertook 3 trips to collect servicemen and war brides of British servicemen from Australia and the Far East. In the winter of 46-47, the first deck trials with the Hawker Sea Fury took place aboard Victorious, leading to its approval for carrier operations in early 1947. She was reduced to reserve in October 1947 and joined the Home Fleet Training Squadron in 1948. The ship was extensively reconstructed and modernised at Portsmouth Dockyard between 1950 and 1958. This took over 8 years because of frequent design changes to allow for new technologies. In particular, the decision in 1953 that she would have to have her original steam turbines replaced to be viable past 1964, which meant much work had to be redone and a new flight deck installed twice over. The cost of the reconstruction increased from £5 million to £30 million, creating what was in many respects a new ship. The hull was widened, deepened and lengthened, the machinery was replaced with Foster Wheeler boilers, her hangar height was increased, new armament of 3-inch guns were installed, a fully angled flight deck and steam catapults were added. Her radar equipment was extensively altered to include up-to-date equipment and included the first Type 984 3D radar system to be installed on a ship. While it was out, she could operate a full air group of 50 aircraft. The rapid increase in size of jets coming into service limited her to operating no more than 28. On the 25th of September 1958, Commander J.D. Russell drowned in his submarine Scimitar after a failed attempt to land on Victorious for for the first time after a refit. Although the landing hook engaged the arrestor wire, the wire itself snapped due to the improper rigging, and the aircraft then rolled slowly over the side. It sank very slowly, but the plane guard helicopter crew couldn't release the pilot, and it was seen that Commander Russell had opened his cannon bay and then closed it again, possibly as effect of gravity on the heavy frame. The other 7 sinkers in the stream diverted away to Yeovilton. In 1960, after recommissioning into the Home Fleet on the 14th January 1958, with workups and deployments in the Atlantic and Mediterranean Sea, she portrayed both herself and HMS Ark Royal during the filming of the British film Sink the Bismarck. This was despite post-war modifications significantly altering her appearance. The addition of an angled deck and a Type 984 searchlight radar. The actor Kenneth Moore, who had served aboard Victorious as a junior officer, played a fictitious Admiral Director of Operations. He is shown giving the order to detach Victorious from convoy WS-8B, which was forming on the River Clyde, in order to move almost 20,000 troops to the Middle East. Victorious took part in Operation Vantage in support of Kuwait in July 1961. Later in 1961 she would sail to join the Far East Fleet. In 1964 she provided support for the newly independent state of Malaysia against territorial expansion by its neighbour Indonesia. In April 1966 departed again to serve with the Far East Fleet for a year, during which she proved capable of landing and launching the United States Navy Phantom F4 from USS Ranger, returning to the UK for a refit period from June 1967. On the 11th of November 1967, after the completion of the 1967 refit and shortly before the start of what was intended to be the ship's final commission, as I've said, there was a relatively small fire which was rapidly extinguished in the Chief Petty Officer's mess, resulting in 1 death and 2 hospitalisations. Although damage was relatively minor, the fire coincided with a reduction of the defence budget and a manpower shortage for the Royal Navy. Together with the 1966 decision to phase out fixed-wing naval aviation, it was decided at very short notice not to recommission Victorious. The captain was told of this just 1 day before the scheduled recommissioning ceremony. The ceremony was held by the ship's crew anyway as a wake for the ship. She was paid off in 1968 and placed on the disposal list in 1969. She was sold later that year to British shipbreakers and towed on the 13th of July 1969 to Fast Lane Naval Base, where she was broken up. Now I've got to be honest guys, I did not know anything about Victoria's history before starting this kit, and I'm very glad that, as I say, I chose this particular carrier to build as part of the National Pride Group build. I'm sorry that this video has taken so long. I may try and chop it into several parts. If you stuck with me all the way through, well, give yourselves a pat on the back and go and get yourself a nice drink or something. Thanks ever so much for watching, and hopefully I will show you the final reveal of Victorious very soon.